What's up, everyone? It's Shaletta. I'm here getting a phone for one of my newly minted teenagers with Xfinity Mobile. They've got great options, affordable plans, and solid coverage that works for our whole family. With Xfinity Mobile, my daughter can stay connected with me wherever she goes. And did you know when you sign up, you can get an extra phone line free for a full year? Switch to Xfinity Mobile today for more savings, more smiles, and more ways to stay connected.
In Minnesota, we pride ourselves on our nation-leading voter turnout and safe, secure elections. Elections allow us to make our voices heard and stand up for the communities and issues we care about. To exercise your right to vote, first make sure that you are registered to vote. After registering to vote, make a plan to vote on or before Election Day, Tuesday, November 5th, 2024. Learn about how to register to vote, cast your ballot, find your polling place, and more by visiting mnvotes.org.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Financially Fit Podcast. I am your host, Andre Creighton. Happy to be here with you all today on this journey to becoming financially fit. So today, if you don't know much about me and you're new to this podcast, I have spent the majority of my career in the finance space, specifically as a CFO now. I have built my own company and now working for also a very high growth tech company now as their CFO. So lots of experience in that space, lots of experience on the topic that we're going to talk about today from an investment standpoint. And as I always say, we do have some social media channels. So we have our IG and such. If you'd like to DM me about topics you'd like to hear, I'm always looking to hear from our audience on things that they want to learn about. But without further ado, today we're talking about sustainable investing and how ESG criterias impact that. So if you haven't heard about sustainable investing, really what sustainable investing focuses on is investment decisions that are based on being ethical, environmental, and then also social considerations. So what we've seen over time this gain more traction. Specifically with millennials and then those generations to follow being Gen Z and obviously Generation Alpha is not at a point yet where they're probably doing any investing. Likely their parents are investing on their behalf. But what we are seeing is that millennials and the generations behind them are becoming a lot more environmental and socially inclined to invest in things that match their values. And that's not to say that generations before this, baby boomers and Gen X are not socially conscious or not focused on the environment. They certainly are, but what I'm getting at is that this kind of new generation is very hypersensitive and focused on those things due to some of the things that are happening in our society, from climate change to now having electric vehicles to kind of social determinants of health, to civil rights. This generation and beyond seems to be very focused on how do I create sustainable change here in our society. So you may be asking yourself, what does ESG stand for and what does it mean? So ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance. So when we think about environmental, we think about how it impacts nature. So some of the things I talked about are, carbon. We talked about clean water. Uh, those are the things that we think about from the environment. How is it impacting our environment? And how can I invest to improve the environment that not only I live in, but also future generations are going to live in, right? When we think about social impact investing, we're thinking about the impact on society. So a quick story, back in 2020, I left my job to start a company with two other friends of mine, one being an attorney, the other being a very tech sales individual that worked at some pretty prominent tech companies, and then myself obviously being a finance background, accounting. Um, and we built a company called Turn Signal that focused on providing individuals when they're pulled over or they get into an accident with an attorney in real time. So anywhere in the country, they could press one button or use voice command. They can get an attorney anywhere on the phone to be able to help them in those situations, whether they're pulled over at a traffic stop or whether they've been in an accident in the snowy winters of Minnesota. Uh, this was our way of responding following some of the civil unrest with George Floyd. The three of us looked at ourselves and we said, what are we doing with our skill set to be a part of the change we want to see in the world? How are we helping individuals uh, be de-escalated during these interactions? How are we protecting their civil rights? And how are we ensuring that not only the driver gets home, but also the law enforcement officer gets home? So we came up with this concept, and this is just one instance of how you know technology can have an impact on society, and how this is a social company that had garnered quite a bit of investment. I also think about companies like Tom's, right? You buy the shoes, and then a portion of that gets donated to different places to help with prevalent issues that are occurring in our society. And then lastly is kind of governance practices. So when you think about governance practices, that could be anything around policy and some of those things, and how that impacts the way that we live here as people in our society. So that's really kind of a overarching theme around ESG. Um, I think that there's a few different approaches when it comes to strategies around investing in this space. So, you know, there's a thing called negative screening, which really looks at excluding kind of those harmful industries. Positive screening, which is including companies with good practices, and then impact investing, which is investing in projects and generate social or environmental benefits. So these are very important things to consider as we're thinking about doing sustainable investing and considering the kind of those ESG requirements. So there are a lot of studies that show that ESG investing and sustainable investing actually provides a really good return. I think that there have been kind of these myths around here that have said, like, there's no way that if you invest in social impact or you invest in environmental impact or governance and policies that you can see a good return, rather than in comparison to doing more traditional investing, right? Maybe investing in like an Apple or investing in a Microsoft or something of that sort, like those larger corporate environments. And what we found is that's just false. We are seeing some really good returns long term. They may take longer time, right? But we are seeing better returns. In fact, um, a survey from the University of Oxford found that 80% of studies showed that companies with solid ESG performance correlated with strong financial performance. And what we know about financial performance is, if a company is performing well financially, they're probably on a pathway to one, either IPO or get to a point where they're going to exit and sell to another company, which obviously would garner returns in either scenario for those early stage investors. So um, the theme around all of this is, I always tell you that this is truly a marathon. It's not a sprint. And I mean that, right? This is an example of why it's a marathon, right? If you're looking for those big, really quick turnarounds and gains, um, you know, ev- it all comes back to, what is your risk appetite? So, if you are looking for some really big gains in short term, you might go and look at doing some options and puts, right? Or look at some options. And the thing about that, right, is it's really one of those things where, if you're playing in the options game, while you can have those astronomical gains, you also can have a lot of losses, right? Um, uh, it's just like if you go to the casino and you're a blackjack player and you take $100 and you put it all down um, on one play, right? Your odds of getting a good return become slimmer, right? Versus spreading your chips out across multiple plays, right? It's the same as if you have been at a casino and you play craps, right? It's a very craps is one of the games where you can make the most money, but also it's one of those games where you can lose a lot of money very fast. That's the same with options. So um, but at the end of the day, I'm not saying that's wrong. I think it all comes down to your risk appetites. You have to be able to understand the swings of things and be comfortable knowing that, hey, I could lose a lot of money today, but tomorrow I could make a lot of money, right? Um, so the other thing to think about is investment demand. So we know, as I mentioned, this is growing, particularly around millennials and Gen Z, um, who are preferring to invest in companies that align with their values. Um, and what we know about that also is that the increase in demand of that, because a lot of baby boomers and Gen X are retiring, specifically baby boomers, we know that with the increase of demand, that's also going to drive up the stock prices of ESG companies, right? Which is also going to contribute to better performance. So we also have to think about, okay, what are people investing in, right? What do people care about? Think about the fact of, people like the baby boomers who are retiring. Well, now they're moving to more fixed income, right? They might not earn as much money as they have over their career over the next 20 years of their life. Where if we're looking at a millennial or Gen Zer, they're in the prime of their career where maybe they're getting those bumps and raises and bonuses every annually or quarterly or whatever it may be. So we have to also think about the demand of things and how that impacts some of our investing. We know that there's lower volatility compared to traditional funds. Um, that stability can be appealing to investors during market downturns. We're just coming out of a time where for 2 years we've seen some downturns in the market, and now things are looking a lot better. But this is the time where we might want to have been thinking about over the past 2 years, what can I invest in that's a little less volatile than what I may have in the past? So it's really creating that balance within your investing portfolio. And then, the last thing I want to touch on is just the positive impact on innovation. So, what we know is that companies that prioritize ESG factors often invest in sustainable technology and practices, which obviously can lead to innovation and new revenue streams. So, um, really, what we're getting at is a lot of these companies are very forward thinking, which also can contribute to long term profitability. Now, as I said, you might not see the returns in the short term, but if we're thinking about that marathon and how do I get how do I run my 26-mile marathon, and how do I keep a good pace to finishing the race? Um, this is what we want to be thinking about. These are the variables that we want to be thinking about. So, uh, you know, I don't claim to know it all. Never will. But I am a lifelong learner, and I do think that I know enough to be dangerous. And you know, there's no right or wrong way to invest. The only way to invest is what matters to you. And if you keep your values at the forefront of your investment strategy, that's what's going to help you in those downturns where you're losing money. Feel comfortable about where you are, because you didn't invest just to make gains. You invested because the company provided value to your belief system. And I believe that everyone is put on this earth with a vocation and a purpose. So if you're aligning with companies that align with your values, you're fulfilling your purpose and your vocation. And that's going to mean something during those times where maybe you're not making as much money as you would like, or maybe it's not returning money as fast as you would have liked to have seen. So with that being said, I'm going to challenge everyone to find one company in 2025, and we want to start doing our research now as we're getting nearing 2025. I find one company that aligns with you from an ESG standpoint, whether it's environmental or whether it's social or whether it is a part of that governance category. Find one company in one of those three categories that aligns with you and invest in it. And let's just see how it performs over the year. So, with that being said, as I always say, the power is not in how much money you make, the power is in how much money you keep. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I am your host, Andre Creighton. I look forward to seeing you all in the next episode of the Financially Fit Podcast. Take care.
You know Shaletta makes you laugh, but did you know Shaletta Brundage can also make you think and boost your business? Media personality, activist, and comedian Shaletta Brundage founded Shaletta Makes Me Laugh to celebrate and share the best of Black culture. It's a podcasting platform. You can download 10 weekly podcasts hosted by African-American subject experts at ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com is also a production house, creating broadcast-quality commercial content. And Shaletta and her team of storytellers create powerful promotional campaigns to get businesses the brand awareness they're looking for. Some of Minnesota's top businesses trust Shaletta, and you can too. Get out the word about your events and products and get in front of communities of color with ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com. She's got the power to help your business.
COVID-19 cases are on the rise, and peak flu season is almost here. Save time and get the updated COVID-19 vaccine and your flu shot at the same time at Hy-Vee. Schedule your updated COVID-19 vaccine and flu shot online today, or just stop by any Hy-Vee pharmacy whenever it's convenient for you. No appointment necessary. Plus, when you get your flu shot at Hy-Vee, earn a 20-cent fuel saver. Your Hy-Vee pharmacy is here to help you and your family stay healthy.
Are you the parent or guardian of an adult with autism? If your loved one has no restrictions through court order, then they are eligible to vote. And you can assist them in many ways. Some citizens with autism don't like unfamiliar places and activities. These voters might prefer to cast their ballot at an early voting center. Leading up to Election Day, these early voting centers are less busy and less likely to require waiting. Early voting centers are open all over Minnesota, and you can vote there right now. Or you can request an absentee ballot to vote by mail. That's right. Eligible voters can cast their ballots without ever leaving home. On Election Day, curbside voting is another option to make voting easy and comfortable. Election judges will bring a ballot directly to the vehicle with a person with a disability. Make a plan to support and assist your loved one with autism this election season, so they can participate and exercise their precious right to vote. You can find out more at mmvotes.gov. That's mmvotes.gov.
Your vote matters and has real-life impacts on our community. Have you made a plan to vote? You can vote early at your voting center before Election Day, and your employer must let you go with paid time off. You can also vote by mail by requesting a ballot from the Minnesota Secretary of State's website. If you have any questions or problems voting, call or send a text to 866-OUR-VOTE. That's 866-687-8683.